Hello everybody, I want to welcome you to my first video from TR Data. Today we're going to replace a laptop screen, Samsung NP365 series. Fairly easy screen to replace. You can see in the top corner this screen was actually stepped on by a child, cracked the front corner of the screen, and off it went. First thing we want to do, this is a fairly simple process, is shut the machine down and remove the battery. Once the battery is removed, flip it back over and begin the disassembly. The disassembly is actually fairly straightforward. There are two small screws in the bottom corners of the screen pointing out here behind two black little stickers. Basically labels is all they are. Simply remove those, get a sharp something, a fine tip knife or a pin or something that you can get underneath there and remove those two labels from. Now I am going to speed up. I apologize for the edits in advance, and I'm going to speed some of this video up just to get it within at least close to 10 minutes or so. So here I'm very carefully removing these stickers. I don't want to destroy them. This is simply aesthetics. It's not doing anything functional. It's the two screws underneath there that I want to get at. And I'll remove those two screws and partially release the bottom of the screen. Now these screens do come apart pretty easily. The one thing you don't want to do is force them. If you force them, you start to break clips, and they will not seat properly when you come to put them back together again. This one here, you can usually get your fingernail, or I have a spudger tool that I use for some of the other projects that I do. I'm getting in there and just very carefully working it and separating those clips along the top first and then moving down the sides. This side on this particular machine came off pretty easy, but this side was being a little more difficult, and it took me a little work to gently move those clips or release those clips so that I could gain access to the screen. Do not force it. Don't push too hard on these things. They will give. Persistence is the key here. Like I said, just make sure that you're not cranking these things too hard. Once you've released the sides, you need to release the bottom. You've taken the screws out, and there are a few clips along the bottom. You may need to turn the laptop over, and you'll hear them click when you get those clips free. And once they start to loosen, you'll know it. And they'll release pretty easily once you get to that point. Just patience and tenderness is the key here. You certainly don't want to break it. When you put it back together again, you're not going to be able to seat everything properly. The seams won't line up, so be careful with those clips. Now there's a frame that holds the actual screen in. There are two screws that hold the two frame rails along the side in. On the top right and top left hand corner. We'll remove those two screws. Again, I'm speeding the video up to try to get it within a reasonable amount of time, and you can pause the video at any point and catch up if you're going to do your laptop screen replacement along with me here. Now, what I'm doing on the right hand side is removing three screws, and you'll see those a little bit better when I turn the machine. There's three screws that hold that rail onto the laptop to secure those together, and one on the top, one on the bottom, one in the middle. You would pull the screen out just a little bit to gain access to those screws. Be very gentle, and you'll see the screws a little bit better here. You see one just by my thumb here, one a little further down, and the third one that I'm working on right now. Remove those carefully. Again, don't bend that screen too much. You certainly don't want to create any more problems. All this one's already broken. You want to use good practice as you're assembling and disassembling, either yours or if you're doing it for somebody else. There's things. Now on the top of this laptop, as with many of them now, there is a camera. That camera has a cable connected to it, and that is taped to the back of the screen. So gently release that, tilt the screen forward, and you can then just very easily release that's held on by a little bit of adhesive, the cable that's on the back of the existing screen. Once you've kind of loosened that cable, there's a little black piece of tape that helps hold that connector in place. Gently peel up that front part of the connector, pull it back. You can then reach around or the back of the cable where it has some light adhesive, double-sided tape. holding it to the back of the screen, you'll need to release that. So gently get something not very sharp or anything. Don't stick a knife in there, or don't use a razor blade to try to pry that up, and then gently pull that up, and that cable connector will come right out of the back of the screen. A nice thing about these displays is there's only one cable. The older displays had a flatter ribbon cable and a power supply as well, so two things that you had to deal with. So this single cable is very easy. Once that's out of the way, we can bring our new display in place, and you'll see that it has the exact same display. Laptopscreen.com is where I got this display, and I want to give kudos to the staff out there. They shot it to me very, very quickly, and it's exactly what I ordered. There were two options for this Samsung, a glossy display or a matte. The customer wanted the OEM replacement, which would be the matte display, but there is that option out there from laptopscreen.com. If you wish to get a glossy display, you're able to do that. Once you lay that display down, I kept the protective film on the front of it so I don't want to scratch it as it was sliding across the keyboard. Very carefully place that connector back in. You'll see it when it's level. It's got to look good. It's got to be seated as it was before. Just fitting it, making sure everything's right. Once it's fit, I'm going to remove some of the tape from that display. Just move it out of the way so I can get it off later. Set it back in place, and you'll want to very carefully line it up with the screws that are on those upright, those little rails. And you'll start putting that together. Make sure the cables are in the same place so that you're not pinching anything. It's pretty hard to do that. It's pretty straightforward. So most anybody can get that in the right spot. And then start replacing these 6 screws again in those little side rails. Top, middle, and bottom. I'll usually place the top ones first just to hold the screen in place, and then replace the other 2 screws. Again, I apologize for the cutaways here. I had a couple phone calls and other things going on in the house here when I was replacing this for this customer. I also apologize for the video and the lighting. That is something that I'm going to work on. I've actually got a little place in the office here where I'm going to set up better lighting and better camera. So continuing to replace the screws on the side. The bottom one is the most difficult because you have the least amount of space in there to get that screw in. You can tilt the screen forward, but be gentle. Again, try not to bend it too much. If you do, you will crack it. And you'll be ordering another screen from laptopscreen.com if that's the case. Now, if anybody's going to say anything about the cutaways, just so you know, there was nothing that I'm leaving out there. In fact, you'll see an error that I made a little bit later in the video when I put the bezel on without replacing the screws for those side rails. So, a little worried about the angle and the lighting and trying to stay out of the camera. So now that those screws are in place, I'm going to plug it in and test it to make sure I've got that cable connection in there properly. Remove the protective film now that it's not going to fall on the keyboard, and the screen looks like it's working beautifully. As you recall, the top right hand corner of that screen was pretty badly cracked, and here I am putting the bezel on without replacing the screws on the top right and top left corner that hold those rails in. Are they necessary? Probably not. Should they be there? Yeah, they should. So I'll gently remove those clips again. I'm not going to take the whole thing off. I'm just going to pull it forward a little bit so that I can gain access to those holes and replace them. There we go. Screen's working beautifully. I'm going to go ahead and force a shutdown again. Pull the bezel off, and again, replace those 2 screws. This, as I said earlier, is a fairly simple job. It doesn't take a whole lot. If you have some mechanical ability, you should be able to handle this project. Just take your time. Be in a well-lit, organized place, unlike where I am right now. There we go, got that screw in there. Now I'm going to gently press that bezel back in place. Here all those clips snap as they grab a hold and secure themselves. And now I'm going to secure the bottom with the 2 screws. And then place those little adhesive tabs, those little stickers, back over the screw holes so you don't see the ugly shiny screws in among the pretty black bezel. And again, just using a very fine tip screwdriver is what I'm using, but you can use most anything. Putting them back in place. And that's pretty much it. That's a laptop screen replacement. Again, an easy job. Most anybody, I think, can do. Only tools that I used was really that really fine tip screwdriver, spudger, and a small Phillips. And a little bit of time. It took me probably a total of about 20 minutes to do it. With the film being sped up here, we're going to keep it about 11 minutes. And done. Another laptop, almost like new, ready to go back home. I want to thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more videos, and thank you for laptopscreen.com for fast shipping and great service.